Yeah, and good afternoon, everyone. So I will be talking to you about how I am currently leading a project to open up library induction. So I am looking to engage non-campus based students, but actually this resource is for all new students, and how we can look at engagement through creating flexible resources. You may have noticed I have had a recent role change. So I think on the programme I am called a learning and teaching librarian. As of May, I have now switched across to being a college librarian still at Sheffield Hallam. So an outline of this short paper. So I'll be telling you a little bit of background about the university, the induction group that I lead and how we link into the overall university welcome offer. I'll look at evaluations. So I evaluated the September 25-26 induction period, and then how this led to a proposal for a new online library induction module. And then I'll outline where we're currently at, because this module is still in development, and our next stages. So a bit of background. So Sheffield Hallam is a post-92 university with around 30,000 students. There are two campuses, City and Collegiate, and both campuses have libraries. So AdSets Library and Collegiate Library. As mentioned, I am project lead for the library induction group, and its purpose is to coordinate library service induction activities for new taught students. This is a cross-library team. We work really hard to prepare and make available library services assets. We ensure that induction priorities are communicated across the service and that we follow best practice. And overall, we align with, it's called Hallam Welcome, where we are, and this we align with the cross-institutional initiative to unite all events and campaigns. We make sure that our welcome message aligns with the overall university welcome message. So we do have to work quite closely with external services. So I'm just going to focus a little bit. My focus for the evaluation point is our actual live sessions that we did for September 25-26. So just going to outline what we did. So we delivered general induction sessions. These were optional and students had to book onto those, so they were not mandatory. This was part of our newly updated information skills offer, where we were trying to reduce the volume of delivery, particularly during induction. The sessions provided a full insight into using library services for new students, so including booking a library learning space, finding appointments, and webinars, as well as using our search catalogue. For pre-arrival, which is, I think, a week before Welcome Week, we ran a couple of online sessions where students were able to get a bit of a preview into their service. And then during Welcome Week, we ran in-person and online sessions. So the in-person session included a physical tour of both libraries, and the online session had a QR code for our self-guided tour that students can complete at any time. So I did my usual evaluation. So first I looked at attendance. Attendance was quite patchy, and to be honest, I've noticed that it has been quite patchy for a couple of years at this point. Our pre-arrival events were fully booked, but on average, less than half attended. For our welcome sessions, again, attendance was very mixed. And when I was reviewing on the day students booking onto these sessions, I would find that our in-person sessions were really popular, but then students would cancel or just not attend. So for me, this felt like there were a couple of scheduling conflicts, because these were often quite last minute. And of course, they're optional. So it does depend on the individual diligence of students to actually find the sessions and book onto them. We did do some work with course leads, so we were promoting these new sessions quite heavily. But there were some challenges. So for in-person sessions, we could not book whole cohorts onto. We were restricted in numbers because we were trying not to create mass disruption across the library by doing a massive tour. But with online sessions, it was also difficult to identify free slots in an already well-packed course induction schedule. So a course lead would approach and go, oh, can you do a session on this specific point in this specific day? And we would have to turn around and go, sorry, we do not have capacity to run this session. I also looked at student feedback as well. So I'm very conscious during the Welcome Week period that students are being asked to fill in lots of different things, sign up for lots of different types of things. So I didn't really want to create a heavy sorry, just checking the chat. I'm just making sure I'm okay for time. I didn't want to create a really heavy feedback form, so I decided just to do a quick reflective activity right at the end of the session where we ask students, what is one useful thing you have learned about the library services today? And then we collected responses in the in-person session using post-it notes and the online session using Teams chat. Very simple. And then we put it into an Excel spreadsheet. And then I used very simple thematic analysis to categorize responses into specific themes, which enabled me to identify and analyze the key recurring themes across the data. And because I love a word cloud, I also decided to generate some word clouds so I could see like the spread of different types of keywords that were being suggested. So on your screen, you can see a word cloud showing responses for pre-arrival, and then to your right, a word cloud showing responses for Welcome Week. And I found with the pre-arrival, there was a real emphasis on prioritizing online support. And then with Welcome Week, it kind of switches a little bit more to wayfinding, the building being open all the time. There's still some emphasis on online support, but also the fact that we're kind of a bit more on campus there. So I did a little bit more than word clouds, I promise. So I categorized the 42 responses that we had received from this activity. And I looked at the most common type of theme that had been mentioned throughout the data. And I've kind of listed them here. So the top theme, kind of humbling, for a lot of students, is the most important thing that they find valuable to learn about is finding books. Who'd have thought? And then the second example, these are two separate themes, but they both got 5 votes from students. So the library is open 24/7 and laptop loans. And I've just picked out a key quote from one student here. So one student said, open to 24/7, 365, shelter, books, food and safety. And I like this quote because it really does show the importance of academic libraries being used as a third space, and that students see it as new students can see it as a real clear place of sanctuary and safety. Then we've got booking learning spaces and skills webinars. They both got 4 votes each. The library online websites are being able to navigate and find key bits of information. Skills web pages and contact to the library. These are both 2 separate themes here. So really that emphasis on being able to get help and support, particularly during the first initial week. And also, I just noticed here, I just pulled out another quote relating to booking library spaces and skills webinars. So this kind of idea of the library being so much more than just resources, of course. It also, students going along to introductory sessions and finding out that there are support services that they can access. So this led me to do a proposal for a new library induction module. So first of all, faced with all these sorts of challenges and understandings, I decided to just get it all down by writing an options paper. And this is because I recognized that there was a need to expand and widen the reach of Library Welcome. And I wanted to provide students with more choice in how they engage with Library Welcome, rather than just one-shot session. So I decided to explore a variety of different options. So I looked at increasing live in-person online sessions. This was unrealistic with staff capacities and the challenges that that as a sector we are sort of facing at the moment. I did provide a recording, but this turned out to be a placeholder. I was happy with the recording, but I found that it was quite passive, it wasn't very interactive, and there wasn't a huge amount of take-up across students. So while it was great as a placeholder while we developed this online library induction module, overall, I wanted to move on to something that was actually a lot more encouraged at more active learning. So this was the best option, I thought to myself. It enabled the widest reach and it actually aligned with our available staff capacity. So, and also kind of thinking about our changing student body. So this really added, so I looked at some student data as well, and this really added to the rationale for an online module. So post-pandemic, the university is facing an increasingly changing student body, with most of our students actually commuting onto campus. So they may not necessarily, they're home students, but they may not necessarily actually live on campus. And 16% of our students are on a learning contract. So this is where they may be accessing additional support from our disability support service. So it was kind of, you know, for me, it was creating a resource that actually aligned with a changing student body. Commuter students, there's a really interesting paper by Hill et al. Where they look at the behaviour of commuter students. And they observed that commuter students can apply cost-benefit analysis to on-campus activities. So prioritizing, you know, weighing up the cost of living crisis, weighing up transport costs and thinking, is it worth me actually coming onto campus today? What am I actually going to do? Am I maximizing my finances here? Which is a really tough position to be in. And also, a resource like this enables a universal design for learning approach by considering different students' learning preferences as well, because the resource can be completed at any pace and any time. And overall, reduce the volume of teaching delivery needed. So overall, we were aiming for students to feel confident with accessing library support, booking and using learning spaces, developing their independence with using the space and accessing support, and that they feel a sense of belonging within the library environment. So our inputs and activities. So we are creating an Articulate Rise module. So this is using specific software. It's often used for staff training, but in our workplace, we use it a lot for student training as well. We're now looking for this to last 15 minutes rather than 20 minutes. We're being quite selective over content. And we're providing new and returning students with an overview of the library services. The content is directly informed by the evaluative feedback that I did in September, as the module will be split into 4 sections, and all of the content is reflected by what students were prioritising during Welcome Week in terms of being informed about. So we have included a brand new section on laptop loans. We're including multimedia features such as knowledge checks, so chunking up bits of information to reduce cognitive load, and we're also linking out to external resources like the self-guided tour. In terms of hosting, we're looking at doing Blackboard self-upload for courses with high demand for induction delivery, and we're also making a link to the module available on our library welcome page, which is hosted on our library website. So benefits and risks. So as I've said, resource can be completed at any time and pace, aligned with individual learning needs. It can potentially reach students who may not have previously booked onto a bookable session. The risks, I am aware that I want to encourage student belonging, but I'm doing an online resource, so it can still feel impersonable. I recognise that risk. So one thing that we're looking at is we've done a massive project at the moment of taking updated photos of the library spaces, because they have changed a bit since our previous marketing photos were taken, and we're making sure that photos will be scattered throughout the resource so students really do get an overall sense of the space. And we're also working with Hallam Welcome to incorporate up-to-date library information as part of their campus tours. We also will need to be managing expectations of academic staff, which is why I am going to be promoting this resource quite heavily. So I will be presenting a modified version of this presentation at an internal conference. And I think today the new course leads will have had some training where this module will have been mentioned to them. So in terms of next stages, so where we're currently at. So in terms of planning, So we've done planning, we've determined content needed, we've looked at development, so most written and media content has been produced. We've done initial evaluation. We're now just doing some refinements before the module will be created in late July. Then we'll be doing some peer review for a couple of weeks with wider library services and digital education teams. We'll make some more refinements. We'll do we are kind of doing some promotion as well, as I've said. So I am working with Hallam Welcome to embed it into the Welcome framework. So this will be a mini module presented alongside other introductory modules at the start of the academic year. And it will also be promoted quite heavily through the central marketing team's own suite of web pages as well. And then hopefully it should be launched end of August. So I just wanted to end with a few learning points. I'm going to be honest here. This is one of my biggest projects to date. So I wanted to share some things that I found helpful and also some real benefits of developing a flexible resource that I kind of found as I've been going on through this journey. So for a project like this with a quick turnaround, do as much planning in the early stages as possible. It felt like a lot, the sort of terms of reference documents and real detailed project plans that I was creating. But I'm so thankful I spent months doing that, because during these stages, I can just turn back to my documentation, update it and tweak it if needed. But it has been a bit of a lifesaver. It's also important to, with the people that you're working with to create the content. I made a decision that I wanted to work with the actual service leads. So I wanted to work with the service lead to produce content on laptop loans, on library learning spaces. So the information was actually going to be really up to date. But for a lot of my team, they hadn't necessarily created a learning resource. Maybe they hadn't done it before, or it's been a while since they've written in a pedagogical sort of way. So working with a learning technologist, we directed them towards some training in terms of learning how to put together an articulate rise, how to put together content, how knowledge checks work. And yeah, overall, asynchronous resources enable you and your users to be truly flexible. So this idea of blended learning and expanding what a physical classroom can be. So we're able to signpost users to content directly. So before, when I was doing a one-shot session, I would notice that I would say, oh, this is a great resource, but then it would be up to the students to find the link in my slides, click on the link, and then being able to access it. With this sort of resource, users can just go straight to it, straight to the bit of information that they actually need. It's not going to be a linear resource, by the way, I should have mentioned that. Users can absolutely skip ahead to different sections. And also, really importantly, for me, it's important to recognise that not all student journeys are going to be the same. So while I would love it if they discovered this resource during Welcome Week, I recognise the reality that actually they might find this resource at different points of their journey. So really this kind of opens up library induction to be something that is truly flexible, and students are able to access it and go back to it depending on what point they are at, particularly during that first semester and even into their second semester as well. I think I've got 1 minute left. I've been keeping I've been keeping a separate timer. So these are all my references that I've used, and yeah, thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.